Oh, what's up, heathens? It's me, Joel Jumpman. You've caught me at a busy time. I've been waiting at my door for minutes. A roommate of my friend's cousin's friends said they got a picture of that Pope guy, and they said they'd pass it along. I just can't wait! That must be it now. This must be it! Huh, did not know the Pope looked like a cloud. This is just what happens when you get a copy of a copy of a copy. It's just like playing a big game of telephone. No, Aunt Joan, I said telephone. And, as the genius scholars on the internet tell me, the Bible is just like a big game of telephone, and we always know to trust everybody on the internet. The Bible was written 2,000 years ago. We don't have the original manuscripts. All we have are copies of copies of copies. That can't possibly be accurate. This wins Internet Atheist a point against the Bible. Unfortunately, it's also an argument against every other ancient book. The fact is, we don't have the original copies of any ancient book. Plato's Republic, Aristotle's Ethics or Poetics, Tacitus's Annals, Caesar's Gallic Wars, nothing. All we have are copies of copies of copies. Many of these books are just as old as the New Testament, or older. But we don't question the fact that they are just copies of copies of copies too. But I'm sure there's absolutely no ulterior motives for trying the Bible at a higher standard than any other ancient book. Good thing too, because I'm sure those Christians couldn't handle higher standards anyway. Huh. Turns out my friend's cousin's friend's roommate has a point. When you compare the New Testament to other ancient books of history, nothing else comes close. Take Tacitus's Annals, for example. A good book to read if you want to think more about the Roman Empire every day. Bit of a slog, though. It's a history of the Roman Empire written about 110 AD, but we only have about a third of the book from 850 AD, and we have another third of the book from the 11th century, and a third of the book we're just missing. There's only one Latin source for each part, and there's at least a 700-year gap. Or take Herodotus. This guy, who wrote his histories in about 400-something BC. The earliest fragments come about 400 years later, and the earliest full work, that's from at least the 10th century. The New Testament, on the other hand, it ain't messing around. There's at least 5,800 fragments or manuscripts in Greek, and if we throw in fragments from other early translations, that number gets up to 20,000. Hey, when you want to spread the good news, you spread the good news. Second place for original books goes to Homer's Iliad, but it's really not that close compared to the New Testament. It has about 2,000 manuscripts, but it's really not that much when you consider that the full works come over 1,000 years or more after it was originally written. But the earliest fragments of the New Testament date to about 130 AD. That's about 50 years after it was originally written. And the fuller manuscripts of the New Testament, they date to 200 AD. That's barely 100 years. The fact is, we're more certain about the Bible's accuracy than we are any other ancient book. We're even more certain about the Bible's accuracy than if Activision will release another Call of Duty this year. Hey, they missed 2004. But Joel, aren't there 400,000 variations in all these manuscripts? And you're correct, as long as you're okay with doing this little thing I like to call lying. And by lying, of course I mean statistics. Insert quote about lying and statistics here. You see, to get that number, you have to do two things. One, you have to count very weirdly. Two, you have to be very generous on what you call variations. Let's say you have one small difference in a manuscript. A scribe messed up these words, got them in the wrong order. Doesn't actually change anything in Greek, by the way. But let's say that there's that variation there. Then 100 copies are made from that. And each of those 100 copies, 100 copies are made from those. Now the question is, do you have one variation or 10,000? If you say 10,000, that's kind of like saying, oh, Harry Potter has 5 million mistakes, because JK once misspelled the word the and went to all those copies. Weird way to count. As for these variations, about 3/4 of them are spelling. Back before dictionaries and widespread literacy, people didn't really care too much about spelling. Little Johnny doesn't care if you spell his name with one N or two, as long as you call him Johnny. Another 24% or so are synonyms. Some place where it said Jesus got replaced with Lord or He. But it doesn't really matter if it says Jesus said, Lord said, or the big man upstairs said. It all has pretty much the same meaning. Now, it may be less than 1% of variations, but these are the ones they want to keep from you. Get ready to have your faith locked. In 1 John 1:4, we don't know whether it originally said, and we are writing these things so that your joy may be complete, or so that our joy may be complete. Christianity is in shambles! And Christians have worked very hard to keep these variations from us. They hide them deep in the Bibles in these little things called footnotes. The fact is, these variations don't affect much about Christian doctrine. All the variations just come because we have so many manuscripts to choose from. Now, modern scholarship helps us to find the original between all these variations. But even before modern scholarship, the Bible is still translated fairly accurately. Just look at the KJV compared to a modern translation. Get rid of all those thys and these and thous and thines and thosifs, and a lot of it's pretty much the same. Nothing of Christian doctrine has been lost in the 2,000 years of Bible copying. Of course, this was an important and holy book to Christians throughout history. Of course, they're going to take much more care in copying this than they would playing a game of telephone. They're going to look back and forth to make sure they get it all right. And I've been inspired, which is why I've asked my friend's cousin's friend's roommate to draw me a perfectly accurate replica of the photo. That way I can see it without having to worry about any problems.